Hello, and welcome to another episode of That 60s Recording Podcast, the podcast that has conversations inspired by the golden era of recording. I'd like to tell you again about the new venture that I have started with my good friend and electrical engineer and guitarist, Matty Uller. We started a brand new cable company called Mojo Cables, a boutique cable company where all the cables are handmade here in Yorkshire. We have a limited run of colours. Everything's very simple. We only do instrument cables at the moment. They're hand soldered, they're silicon sealed and vacuum sealed around the silicon. And it's the highest quality Van Damme cable we could find. And we sit in Matty's kitchen and manufacture, if you can call it manufacturing, essentially just build these cables, and we love doing it, and we're very proud of them, and they're as high quality as we could possibly make them, and we love them. And one of the main reasons that we started this cable company was to combat our own mental health sort of issues, I guess you could call it. But I mean, everybody struggled with their mental health during lockdown. So we decided that we wanted to do something that was kind of nice together and solder some cables. So with that in mind, we are donating £1 from every cable sale to the charity Mind, who do incredible work with mental health. So you can find out more about Mojo Cables at mojocables.com. You can also buy the cables on there. We're also on Instagram at Mojo Cables. So thank you for that. Okay, so on with the episode. This week is the second half of my conversation with Joe Carra, who is a mastering engineer from Melbourne, Australia. And he is just fantastic to speak to. And we really get into some nitty-gritty in this second half of the conversation. And as I said last week, the quality of the conversation, the actual sound quality, not the quality of the conversation itself, is quite a lot better on this episode because it's through WhatsApp as opposed to just my phone line. I was very tired. It's Monday, or it's Tuesday now. It's Tuesday morning, and I've just come back from a 4 or 5 days away gigging. And I'm pretty tired, which is why I made that error. But it is what it is, and we're only humans after all. Anyway, stop rambling, Joe, and get on with the conversation. Part 2 of my chat with Joe Carra. Taking that on then to the actual sort of process of Signal Path. I know obviously you might not want to give away every minuscule detail, but could you run us through sort of do you have like a standard starting point or a few things that you do every time?
Not really. I get asked this a lot because it's I on purpose put everything to unity gain when I'm listening. So I guess my procedure is my mixes are generally digital, with the odd project being analogue. So I'll put it into my playback computer. So I have a separate computer that plays back the unmastered audio, and that goes down a separate line into my console. So as I'm just zeroing all of my equipment back to unity gain, I'm just listening to the mixes with no processing on. Just on a very clean line, a monitoring line going straight to my signal. I on purpose don't have any preconceived ideas about signal path. I don't even have a starting chain, to be honest, Joe.
Cool.
I just, will insert stuff as I need through my console. One day the Shadow Hills can be at the beginning of my chain. The next day it can be at the end of the chain. It really depends. And I really think that having a customized approach to each and every job is probably what my clients like and how I get the best out of it. I often laugh at these software kind of, not laugh, but I kind of find it a bit misleading how a lot of these software packages have this they try and peddle this preconceived notion that it's EQ, compressor, and limiter. And all these packages come out with those kind of 3 stages in a row. and I kind of lead everyone to believe that's what mastering engineers do. They EQ first, they compress second, and they limit. Now that's certainly one scenario that's common, but it's not how, I just, once I have everything zero, Joe, on the console, then I'll flip over to my A line, which is my mastering chain, and I listen to the mixers just going through all of the gear with no processing, but just through the actual the gain stages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by the time I do that, something's in my ear and I start working on something, but I don't have a game plan where I say, right, I listen to the bottom end first, then the top end, then I patch this. It's just pretty organic. It's like whatever feels right. Like if I hear something and it's like, wow, this mix is really bright, I want to warm it up, I'll just start working on that. And then by the time I finish solving that bit of the puzzle, something else reveals itself and I'm like, oh, that's really giving me, the ear. So I'm going to start working on that a bit. And so I just kind of, I don't know, I just get ideas bouncing, they'll just come to me as I'm working on it. And I think probably a lot of mastering engineers are like that, where you just hear stuff and you just start working on what's jumping out at you as needing help, and then going to the next bit and the next bit. And but I certainly don't like to have any preconceived ideas. Sometimes having a compressor sandwich is awesome. You put the EQ in the middle and then you put a compressor either side. Sometimes that works really good. But sometimes I compress first or, last. It really, I'm not trying to be obscure or elusive. It's just, that's my approach, is just every day start from a clean slate.
It's
and
reactive.
it's my job to work it out.
Yeah, you're reacting in the moment to it. It's like, sort of like doing anything really. Like when you mix, you're reacting to whatever your ear has, and which is, like you say, it's probably a better way of working than going through motions, because it's not you're sort of emotionally reacting to what you're hearing in the moment.
Yeah.
My head's gone. I had as you were talking, I had a question that I was intent on asking, and it's disappeared from my mind now. What was your journey into mastering? So were you a mix engineer beforehand, and then you got into mastering later on, or?
To be honest, it wasn't, Joe. I started working in a cassette factory.
Oh, cool.
In the early 90s. I was studying audio and music at university, and just got a part-time job at a local audio company. So I was working in a cassette factory, doing quality control and helping out. And then over that summer, I ended up getting a job. The next summer, I should say, I started doing cassette mastering. All the while thinking that I was always trying to get a job working in the recording studio, because actually, to be honest, I didn't know mastering even existed, Joe. I mean, it wasn't when I was studying in that, we didn't even do one module on it. I don't think the awareness in the late 80s or early 90s was really there about it, unless you were really in the know. So, of course, I was studying audio thinking all the while I'm going to be a recording engineer and mixing engineer. And so when I was given this gig to do cassette mastering, I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever, I'll do this until I get a real kind of gig. And then, to be honest, cassettes disappeared almost overnight, Joe. It was like I was doing that for a few months, and the winds of change came through the industry really quickly. And then I got put into CD mastering, and it kind of just stuck. I just kind of kept at it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know, it kind of appealed to my personality. I liked the sense of the attention to detail, because I like to do really detailed work, in mastering. I can get pretty finicky about frequencies and all that kind of stuff, and I I like to really geek out on that, and I love it. So no, my career in mixing never kicked off, mate. It never kicked off, and I just got put into mastering and never left. I just enjoyed it, and to this day enjoy it immensely, more than what I did years ago. I love the job. I think it's a really nice job.
So how did Crystal Mastering start? What was your journey from sort of working for the company, so the tape company, and then CDs? When did you start Crystal, and how did that all come about?
Oh, so I was probably I was mastering with one company for 4 or 5 years, still in my early 20s, and to be honest, just naivety, mate. Just thought that young man syndrome, thinking you're bulletproof and you can do this bigger and better than anyone else, and I was, to be honest, I was using a lot of digital gear.
Okay.
In this mastering suite, because digital was the new thing.
Yes.
And the bosses that I worked for spent big dollars on digital equipment. They even had digital tape machine, the dash machine, so we compiled to digital tape before transferring it to the digital master. And I kept reading these sound magazines, that kept coming to the studio and looking at these. Do you know that magazine?
I do, yeah. It's big in England, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember looking at those and looking at the big spreads of the big mastering studios in the UK and in America, and seeing these guys surrounded in analog gear, and I'm thinking, man, there's got to be something in this. And I just had this bee in my bonnet that analog would be a better way of doing what I was doing. But my bosses weren't very interested in shifting at that point, and rightly so. They had invested a lot of money in that system, but I just kept thinking it was a better way to do it. So it was just that. It was just curiosity, and I just wanted to do it, and I was young enough and had the energy to do it. And so I just left one day and thought, no, I'm gonna start an all analog mastering studio in Melbourne, because Melbourne, I don't feel at the time really had a serious analog mastering studio. Most people were still going overseas or doing that kind of thing. So I was really intent, and the focus was on not just analog gear, but the best. I wouldn't buy anything unless it was like the best of the best.
Yes.
It basically, what I saw in those magazines, I was always so envious. I would see Manly and GML and all this kind of awesome stuff, and I'd be like, man, I bet that stuff sounds awesome. So that's what I built the company on, just that kind of really high-end gear. And, of course, trying to do really good work at the same time. The gear isn't everything. They're really nice tools, but you really do need to have a real interest and passion for it and make sure you're doing the right thing by the client. But certainly having all of that awesome gear around, that definitely helped me get to where I had to get, yeah.
Do you remember what was your first big spend?
Oh, yeah, mate, I remember it. The first bit of analog gear I ever bought was a Manly Very compressor.
Lovely.
That was the first big spend. And along with that, I bought a Summit Pultec clone. I think Summit Audio is, I'm not sure if that's if it's a UK brand or an American brand.
I don't think I know it. Can't picture it.
Yeah. No, Summit Audio makes some amazingly good gear. I think Dave Hill, the guy who did all the cranes, he worked there first.
Okay.
So I bought a valve EQ, a valve compressor, and then kind of the addiction started from there.
It's a rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have a...
But eventually...
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, eventually, though, you do settle down. Like, that whole gear lust thing does calm down after a while, because there's a lot of insecurities when you first start, and you think, if I don't have that bit of gear, I can't compete with this person or that person. And you start to realize that the gear is good, but you also have to back yourself, and what you're doing has to be good as well. And after a while, you settle on a core bit of equipment that does the right thing by you day in and day out. It doesn't mean that you still don't like. I still love gear, and I have a very keen interest in gear, and I'm continuously auditioning and checking stuff out, but not purchasing all the time. Just always interested and just keeping an ear to the ground on what might be different. But I'm pretty happy with the core set of equipment I've got.
So, I mean, this might go slightly against what you've just said, but do you have any specific bits of gear that you perhaps couldn't live without is the wrong way of putting it, but something that you really love that is part of that you'd rather not ever work without it?
Oh, sure, man. Yeah, no, that you always get that kind of stuff. I mean, I have an EQ called the Buzz Requisite EQ. The Buzz Requisite 2.0. It's got a really long name, like the Buzz Requisite 2.0 Resonance Mastering Equalizer. It's the longest name in history.
I'm just looking it up now. It's a big bit of gear, isn't it?
It's the best EQ I've ever used, and I've owned a lot of good EQs. I've owned Sontec and GML and lots of really good bits of gear, but this is by far the best EQ I've ever. It's just so nice. It's one of those mastering bits of gear that it's transparent enough, but not to a clinical point.
Yeah.
It's got a good tone to it, but not enough tone that people would go, oh gosh, it's so coloured. You can only use it on certain jobs. It's like just enough that it suits any job all the time. It's really, really cool. I like it.
Oh, they're from New Zealand. That'd be why I don't know of them. That's really cool.
And they've made a big impact all around the world in most major mastering studios from New York to wherever. That they're found in most places now. They're very much prized. Most people actually retiring their old Sontec EQs because they can't service them.
Yeah.
Are basically replacing them with Buzz EQs now because people are going, oh, these things are the modern Sontec now, really. They're kind of, in my opinion, everything a Sontec should have been. They've got more choices with, high pass stuff, and they've got, they just have more bells and whistles to it. And but yeah, I probably that would be my favourite bit of gear, and one I wouldn't want to part with, to be honest.
Something I noticed reading on the Crystal website is you do some teaching at a university, and you mentioned about learning, when you were doing music, studying music, that there was no mention of mastering. And, I did the music college route, and I can't remember much about mastering happening at that point either. And I think it's really cool that you're involved in changing that.
Yeah. So I don't do much. I don't do, like it's not a full-time gig or anything, but I probably do maybe 3 or 4 guest lectures a year at the various colleges around Melbourne.
Yeah.
And, they're just like 2-hour talks where I chat with the students about mastering. They can ask me stuff. I can tell them whatever they want to know. And yeah, it's a much more comprehensive look at mastering compared to when I was at uni. They really dig deep, and I do some lecturing at a place called the School of Audio Engineering, and they actually have a mock-up mastering room at the college.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I've got like a GML EQ and all kinds of cool things in there. I think a Manly Backbone mastering console, and yeah, they treat it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
So the guys are very eager to ask questions and kind of pick my brain, and it's cool. I like answering whatever questions they have. Having said that, most people are very focused on plug-in mastering when I do these courses. So I think it's sometimes a little bit of a letdown because they want to hear about what's my favourite plug-in, and I'm like, if I can't plug it into the wall, it's not really my favourite. It's yeah.
So I mean, that kind of leads on to what I was going to ask next. What are you finding from sort of younger musicians coming into the industry, I mean, presumably the plug-in thing is probably a cost thing. That it's the plugins they can get them quite cheaply, and then as they move through the industry and have a bit more money, they'll probably start to. Well, you'd hope that they'd start to find the joy in sort of analog gear. But what are you finding their attitudes towards all of this stuff are?
To be honest, I think it's not only financially, Joe. I think it's a cultural thing. I think the young generation just are used to it. Just the way I'm comfortable in analog gear, these guys just, what they can do on a laptop is amazing. They find it like home. And I think a lot of them would feel very uncomfortable using analog gear. Having said that, I know a lot of young guys that embrace it, but it is financially prohibitive. But a lot of guys are really comfortable in it. But to be honest, I have a lot of very funny moments in my studio where I get young guys in that's sitting on a session, and it's foreign to them. I don't think they knew that they were coming to an analog mastering studio. They're probably coming to me because they've been referred by a friend or an engineer, and then they come in and I see them sit on the back couch, and I'm working away for an hour or so, and I can see the little cogs in their mind spinning around thinking, okay, what? They're not quite sure what's happening with all of this equipment. And so finally I give them a listen to the track, and I say, you know what, I'm going to put this down now. And I'm like, so you happy? Does everything sound good? And they've A-B'd it. I'll often step out of the room and give them my chair, and they'll A-B it on my console. There's a big A-B switch, and then they say, yeah, man, love it. This sounds great, and we'll have a chat about it. And I'll say, so I'm going to put this down now. And they kind of look at me at that point, and they go, sorry, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm going to record this now. And I can see that they're struggling with the concept, so I quickly put them out of their misery, and I have to explain that, we're going to capturing this. We're making a new audio file. We're not doing a render. There's no save or undo and at first they get quite concerned about it. They're like, but what if we have to come back? And I'm like, oh, don't you like something? They're like, no, man, we love it. And I'm like, so what don't you want to do? And they're like, oh, we just didn't think that, we were going to do this. And I'm like, man, we have to commit to this master one day or the next. We're here to master the album and make it sound great. And, we're not here to go back and like, they're used to that thing of going back and forth with mixing engineers and producers and doing a revision number 38 and all that kind of stuff. And so they get to a guy like me who's like, that's it, we're done, next track. And so they kind of internally freak out a little bit, I think. But then when they see the process and they get into it for a few hours, they really embrace it. And I love seeing that change when they're like, let's print it, Joe. They're talking the lingo. They're into it and they get it. They're like, we get this, man. We are committing. We are kind of getting the best out of this, and we're calling it a day, And all of a sudden the penny drops, and they get the process, and they understand my workflow and what it means to master an album and bring it all together. And that's really cool. But, sometimes it takes a little while for them to actually understand it.
I love
and
that.
I take it for granted. Because, I'm an old fart and I've done it for so long. But then I realise these kids have probably never seen an outboard equalizer or something like that. And it's always hilarious when they point to my Shadow Hills and go, oh, I've got the plug-in of that. And they freak out. And they almost, some people imply that the plug-in come first, and then did they make that after the plug-in? It's really funny, So, yeah.
That's brilliant. And I think that you're totally right about the, I don't know, kind of the anxiety of needing, what if we need to revisit this? And I think that's something really important that I mean, I hope that sort of younger listeners to this podcast sort of get from that. I mean, and I include myself in that. I love this kind of committing. Just get the idea down, have enough trust in yourself and enough confidence in yourself to go, that's it. That's right. And if it's, if something's really far wrong, just, you can do it again. you can work out another way.
Dude, I was just going to say that because I get that question. They're like, but just say we want to go back. And I say to them all the time, man, if you really don't like it, I don't even want to recall this. I want to start from scratch and rework it again. Now, I very rarely have to do that, very rarely at all. However, that's what I would say to someone is that, I'll rethink it. I'll start from scratch. But to be honest, most revisions and tweaks I have to do are in the box.
Yeah.
They're so minute and so small that the client doesn't even want me to risk not being able to get back to where I was going through the analog domain. They're like, so most of the time it's like, oh man, can we knock, half a dB off top end? Like they're pretty minor.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty comfortable at being in the box at that stage. But yeah, that's my attitude, Joe. If I've stuffed this up, I want to do it from scratch again. So I don't care about recall.
How so in terms of sort of business wise from Crystal, are you receiving files worldwide now? Can people who are listening to this who want their music mastered get in touch with you and just send files over to you?
Oh man, yeah, for sure. I'm doing stuff all the time. In fact, I think I'm mastering something this week from the UK.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I'm doing something from China and the UK and from the States this year. So this week, I should say. So there's always kind of a constant stream of international stuff coming through. Even though most of my work is locally from Australia, I do get quite a bit coming in from Europe and America and stuff. So it's quite nice. It's quite a buzz to have that stuff.
Yeah, it's cool when you're. I'm here in the UK and I work with quite a few people over in the US, and I always find it quite a buzz as well when you're speaking to somebody. There's somebody I work with in Las Vegas and Nashville, and you kind of. I love the way that the world works these days. There are positives in in the digital realm.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bands like the Teskey Brothers and King Gizzard, especially, have really kind of put my name out there, which is really nice because they press a lot of vinyl, that they credit you on their vinyl, which is nice, and that's really just like sending out 1,000 business cards all over the world to people who see your name. So it's really nice, and I've really gotten I guess a lot of free publicity from those successful records, which is really nice,
What's kind of next? Do you have a plan of, are you just carrying on as you are, or have you got, I noticed you've got guys working at your studio. Do you do any kind of mixing there, or what's kind of the next thing for you for sort of crystal mastering?
Look, just doing what we're doing, I'm pretty happy if we can just keep doing what we're doing. There's no real plan to do mixing, even though I have an engineer that works with me who is a mixing engineer. So occasionally what happens is someone will we do a little bit of what would you call it, archival work for people, or digitizing. So they'll come in with an old tape and say, look, this is an old 16 track, and we will organize to have that digitized for them.
Yeah.
We either have that gear on site, or if we don't, I've got contacts right through my local industry. Has a very healthy studio scene. So I could literally drive down the road and someone will have a beautiful Studer 24-track, 2-inch tape machine. So I organise for that to happen, and then we could bring it back to the studio and organise remixing and remastering. Often the client will want to do the mixing themselves or send that out, but then it will return to me for the mastering. But sometimes it's a full service job where we digitize the reel, mix it, and master it. But I really don't get involved in the mixing because I'm a big believer in, if you specialize in something, then that's what you're going to be great at doing.
Yeah.
So I like to give that to a mixing engineer, because as much as I can mix, and I've, dabbled in that, and certainly people have been happy with that kind of stuff that I've done. It's just not my thing. My thing's mastering. That's what I do every day. So,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of clients who send me work that are fantastic mix engineers. So I will often bounce that work to them and say, "Hey man, you should talk to this guy because he's awesome at hip hop, and I'd love to master it." So, but there's a few of us at the studio, and we all kind of keep quite busy, and I'm thankful for that. And Melbourne's in lockdown at the moment, so I just can't wait to get back.
Oh, I bet. I'm a huge advocate for this sort of specializing. Given kind of the everybody listening to this who's familiar with what I do knows that specializing is what I like. But with that kind of advice in mind, I'm kind of picturing you as a in maybe the late 90s or whenever Crystal started, sort of moving away from doing your digital stuff to sort of setting your sights on the analog thing. If you could give some advice to anybody now, or maybe like your younger self back then, I always ask what advice would you give to somebody who's in terms of like a career, because you've spent 30 years building this this great career, and you've worked with some amazing artists. What advice would you say is important?
First of all, being what did I say? Giving good customer service is important. Okay? So this is a people industry. Okay, people are making art here. They're making music. They're often at their most vulnerable when they're sharing this kind of stuff with you. So you've got to be pretty good with your people skills. So that's what I would say to most people, is that just remember that you're dealing with artists that can be, as I said, pretty vulnerable, and you've got to be a really good people person, I think. In terms of, that's a really important thing. Also, I probably would tell my younger self not to be so obsessed with gear. Yes. I know this sounds crazy considering the amount of gear I do have, but I would temper that and say that gear is important. And what I think I did right was buy only good gear. Yeah. And that's what I would say to most people is don't if you have $5,000, don't buy 5 $1,000 items if you're going to be serious about it. Buy one kick-ass thing, right? And I believe and I stick to that even to this day. I don't want rubbish in my studio. I just want good stuff. And the good stuff lasts a long time. Mm-hmm. So it is worthwhile. But I'd also probably say, back yourself. It's not only up to the gear. Don't be that kind of obsessed with it, thinking that if I have this bit of gear, I'm going to get this sound, and it's going to... you at some point you have to realize that you need to make that gear work. Yeah. And it actually took me a while, to be honest, to realize that people were coming because they liked what I did. I know that sounds a bit weird, but I think I pride myself back in the past on having a collection of amazing gear, and I thought that's why people were possibly coming. And I actually had a client say to me one day, he was like, I don't even care because I was kind of telling him about the new stuff I'd bought, and he's like, "You don't have to sell me, Joe." He's like, I don't even know about gear. He's like, I don't even know that much about gear. He goes, I just like what you do. So, I think people really have to understand that and back themselves on that. Gear is great, but you also need to be good at what you do with it. And that might sound kind of logical, but sometimes when you're buried in business and you're trying to do stuff and make things work, sometimes you lose sight of that and you think of all the external things, and you kind of should look closer to home as to why clients like what you do, So
I love that. Yeah. I think that's really important. And as a more technical sort of final question. If people who are sort of artists who are listening to this, who might be preparing mixes and perhaps even hadn't considered, the mastering process, how would you, not in terms of, the actual mixing, but in terms of preparing a mix for master, what do you think, what needs to be thought about?
Yeah. If you know that you're going to a mastering engineer, I think one of the worst things that you can do is put some mastering effects on there and send it off to the mastering engineer. It's a big mistake that happens to this day. It was very prevalent maybe 10 years ago. People would always give you, stuff because all of these mastering packages were coming out, and you would get everything that was, and it was really challenging. And I often had to send masters back and say, no, I can't work on this unless you remove all of these plugins.
Wow.
Because not only are they hindering what I have to do, they actually don't sound very good, man. Just because you're making something louder, it doesn't mean that it's better, And I can't tell you how many albums I saved, Joe, by not doing something, by telling someone to take this stuff off. And then I'd get the mixes back and I'm like, man, the fee that you're going to pay me has just been earned by me just undoing all of that gunk you put on the stereo master. The mixes now sound really good. And that happened to me so many times I can't count, where the mixes came back so much nicer, and then I mastered them, and the client was amazed at the difference when he heard his own master. So that's what I would say to people. Just mix it, spend all of your energy making a great mix and doing a great production. Don't worry about rushing a 10-minute mastering job by opening up some plugin just, because it's making you feel good, because there's an effect that, you're perceiving it's making it better. Like often with a limiter or compressor, it automatically is going to make it a little bit louder.
Yeah.
And that appeals to people's instincts straight away. People think, oh, wow, that sounds great. But all it's done is really limited what I'm going to do. So I've got all this really expensive analog compression, but if something comes to me already a little bit over compressed, doesn't matter what I've got in the rack, I can't use that anymore, because I'm not going to compress an already compressed mix just because I've got a Shadow Hills in my rack. All of a sudden, you've taken that bit of gear out of the equation, and I can't use that for you anymore, because you've already over compressed it possibly already. So just focus on the mix, leave the mastering to the mastering engineer. And what I often say is that if you love something that you've done with a mastering effect or something, print a second version and just send it to me. And I got that today with a job that I was doing. Someone just gave me an example of what they liked, and they were mucking around with some mastering stuff. And I heard it and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. I kind of heard what they were doing and where they were going. But ultimately, I still had to do what I had to do, and hopefully they love that. But yeah, just, I wouldn't waste time, doing that. If you're going to a mastering engineer, if you're doing a DIY master, that's different. But if you are going to pay good dollars for someone to do it, just know that you're probably going to trip them up by doing a little bit of mastering beforehand, yourself. So just, yeah, that's my biggest tip.
I think that's a really good idea, printing a second version to, as a reference almost, to say, like I've done, I like this effect. I hadn't really thought about that, but I think that's something that I know from doing sessions or, drum sessions, that's something I really like, is listening to the guide drums that they've put on. I want to hear what their ideas were, and then I'll interpret them my way, but I want to hear sort of where your head was at when you made this.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of put it in your style.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for speaking to me. You've got so much knowledge on this, and I love listening, because I don't know a huge amount about the mastering process, and I love listening to you speaking about it with so much passion and knowledge and energy. It's great. So thank you.
Thanks, mate. Good on you, Joe.
Cheers, man. Genuinely, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. This will go out maybe in 6 weeks, I think.
Awesome, dude.
And I'll
no, send me a link, and yeah, I'd love to hear how I sound.
Are you doing these new Teskey Brothers things that are coming up?
Yeah, I've been doing a few little things for them, but yeah. So there's been I think a couple of little singles here and there, but no, I don't know of any major work in the works yet, but they're probably just building up to that.
Yeah, Liam mentioned they're doing something live with some strings. I think maybe in January they said they might be recording that, but yeah, quite excited about that prospect. Doing a live album's cool.
I did Sam's album recently,
Mm-hmm.
Sam Teskey's album. That was really wonderful, and even Josh did an album previous to that last year. So, or was that this year? I can't remember. This year's a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've worked with both Josh and Sam on their solo stuff. So I'm looking forward to see what else they have to offer, man, for sure.
Cool. What I'm just curious before you go. I don't know much. I've been speaking to Liam a lot, and it's nice to get sort of recommended Australian acts that I hadn't heard of. Who are you working with that I should check out?
Who am I working with? I've just done something for a band called the Babe Rainbow.
Okay.
Have you? So the Babe Rainbow are a really cool band.
Oh yeah, I found them.
I've been working with King Gizzard, who you said you'd heard of.
Yeah.
I've also done some work with a band called Sticky Fingers, who are fantastic, I would definitely check them out as well, and an artist called Wilson, who's spelt Wilsn.
Okay.
And she's just been signed to Ivy League Records, and I think that's going to be huge.
Oh, cool.
Like, it's kind of a modern Motown record. It's the production values are great, and she is just the most outstanding singer I've ever heard. Probably one of in the top 3 people I've ever heard.
Wow.
In my 30 years of mastering. She just floors me. So yeah, Wilson I think might have international kind of impact. But you know what? I could be completely wrong. Who knows in this business what's going to take off and what doesn't, you know?
Oh, no.
It's just anyone's. I've heard so many great albums mastering that have never seen the light of day. So it just, I don't know. It's a bit of a crapshoot, as they say.
Yeah.
Some things work, some things don't. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll check her out. That you mean anything remotely Motown, I love. So that sounds right up my street.
Good on you, Joe.
Perfect. Right, yeah. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time. I loved it. Thank you.
All the best and take care.
Cool. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, mate.
Okay, there we have it. The final part of my conversation with Joe Carra. I hope you enjoyed that. I love speaking to different mastering engineers. You know, I really enjoyed speaking with Ben Pike. Obviously, I've spoken with Bob Olsen, which is a completely different take on mastering. And mastering, not so much as a dark art, but just as something that, I mean, it's like discussing mixing with somebody, isn't it? You're getting different viewpoints on what's important to them and how they approach it, and everybody's got different approaches, and I love it. I really enjoy it, and it's not something I know too much about. You know, we've all sort of, you know, everyone. I do a bit of mixing, I do a bit of producing. Obviously, I can mix drums and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to mastering, it's not something that I enjoy listening about the process. It's not something I'm particularly interested in doing myself, but it's something I'm really fascinated by. And I've really enjoyed this conversation and sort of contrasting it with what else I understand about mastering. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it too. That just leaves me to say, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do that. My email address is joe@allyouneedisdrums.com. You can visit my website, allyouneedisdrums.com, and on there you can see the shop, which has these lovely enamel mugs for sale. Thank you to everybody that has bought one already. I really appreciate the support. And that also just leaves me to say a huge thank you to Joe Kane. I'm just getting on track with what I used to say. So Rory Hancock for editing and uploading this podcast, Joe Kane for the intro and outro music, David Henshaw for the artwork he supplies. You guys have a fantastic week, and I will be back next Tuesday. Goodbye.